Within the golden sand pit, a peculiar law power coursed ceaselessly, while golden radiance in the air flickered and surged, waxing and waning in brightness to form a dizzying spectacle. Most striking of all was that inside the space covered by the sand pit, the flow of air and the world's origin chi was clearly far swifter than beyond its bounds. Because baleful chi lingered within his immortal acupoints, Han Li could not advance his cultivation past the peak of the golden immortal stage. As such, he devoted most of his time to cultivating the water divination time arts and the illusory dawn treasured scripture. Perhaps he truly possessed extraordinary talent in the laws of time, for his progress in both arts was astonishing. He had already reached the 6th chapter of the water divination time arts and his mastery of the illusory dawn. Treasured scripture had grown deep enough to unleash the illusory dawn sand sea. With a light flick of his finger, the golden glow from the clear time vial suddenly intensified, and the streaks of golden light around it began circulating far faster, resonating with the illusory dawn sand sea below. Hanli then formed another hand seal, summoning his mantra-treasured axis, upon whose surface the number of time Dao runes had grown markedly. Through the steady production of time crystals via the heaven-controlling vial, he had pushed the mantra-treasured axis to its current upper limit of 720 time Dao runes. Vast golden radiance erupted from the axis, flooding the entire secret chamber. The golden light from the mantra-treasured axis, the clear time vial, and the illusory dawn sand sea resonated with one another, causing the surrounding space to tremble and emit a faint hum. Hanli was not surprised by this. Ever since he first obtained the water divination time arts and the illusory dawn treasured scripture, he had sensed a hidden connection between them and the mantra axis scripture. As his cultivation deepened, this suspicion only grew stronger. The three arts were so closely interwoven that they felt as though they originated from a single source, though he could not yet confirm this, lacking full mastery of all three. At this moment, Hanli closed his eyes and softly chanted an incantation. The three streams of golden light flashed in unison, then gradually drew together at his command. The distinct time law powers intertwined, attempting to merge, yet a subtle resistance lingered between them, preventing true fusion. Through long cultivation, Hanli had gained a deeper comprehension of both these arts and the laws of time themselves. As one of the three paramount laws, time stood at the very core of heaven and earth. On a small scale, it governed life and decay. On a grand scale, it propelled the entire true immortal realm forward. It was as though unseen hands elevated time above all other laws. This was why it was deemed paramount. Most laws could not influence it, yet it could suppress or alter many of them. Even common laws, such as water and fire, were greatly weakened under its influence. The mantra axis scripture, through the mantra treasured axis, allowed control over the speed of time within a region, an ability already extraordinary, yet this was merely one application of time's vast profundity. The laws of time were boundless, and the mantra axis scripture alone could not encompass them fully. The water divination time arts and the illusory dawn treasured scripture were simply alternative interpretations and expressions of the same supreme power. For any cultivator, mastering even a single law was exceedingly rare. Ordinary true immortals, though able to sense law powers, lacked sufficient immortal spiritual power to wield them. Only upon reaching the golden immortal stage could one begin to truly step into this domain. The key to mastery lay in deepened understanding. This was why Hanli chose to cultivate all three arts simultaneously, using their differing manifestations of time law to sharpen his insight. As his hands continued forming seals, the three golden radiances gradually converged, forming a swirling golden vortex within the secret chamber. Though all three time law powers were drawn into the vortex, they remained distinct, refusing to fuse. Hanli frowned slightly and accelerated his hand seals. The vortex spun faster and shrank, the three powers clashing violently as countless golden runes burst forth from its core, releasing turbulent time law fluctuations. Yet fusion still did not occur. Instead, the vortex teetered on the brink of explosion. Hanli quickly halted his actions, causing the vortex to stop shrinking as the violent fluctuations subsided. A bitter smile crossed his face. Over the years, he had tried countless methods to merge the three time law powers, all ending in failure. Was fusion truly impossible, or had he overlooked something? Suddenly, a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. With a sweep of his sleeve, more than 1,000 azure array flags flew forth, vanishing into different corners of the secret chamber. Azure light flashed chaotically, forming a thick barrier etched with countless profound runes, radiating an indestructible aura. At the same time, Hanli activated his Xuanwu bloodline, massive azure turtle shells manifesting over his body and assembling into a suit of dark green armor that fully encased him. Still unsatisfied, he spat out several defensive immortal treasures, which transformed into multicolored protective barriers around him. Once all preparations were complete, he resumed his attempt. The golden vortex shrank again, the three-time law powers colliding with explosive force. Hanli let out a cold snort and pressed forward instead of retreating. The vortex spun madly, its core blazing with blinding golden light as innumerable runes churned within. In the next instant, a terrifying aura surged forth, threatening imminent detonation. Hanli narrowed his eyes and redoubled his efforts. The vortex quivered violently and shrank further, compressing the core of golden runes to the very edge of explosion. At that critical moment, the three-time law powers seemed to surpass a hidden threshold. Their violent turbulence vanished, becoming gentle and obedient as they fused under Hanli's will. The surging golden runes collapsed inward, rapidly condensing into a radiant golden ring that swallowed the remaining vortex. The golden light throughout the chamber faded, leaving only the small ring hovering in midair, glowing brilliantly. Hanli stared at it, joy and shock mingling in his gaze. Yet the ring was unstable. It trembled violently, cracks spreading across its surface as if it might shatter at any moment. An overwhelming surge of time law fluctuations burst forth, rapidly eroding the azure barrier upon contact. Hanli frowned. Even the other restrictions within his cave abode might not withstand such power. Just as he was about to act, a green light shot from his robes. The heaven-controlling vial flew out, hovering before the golden ring, its mouth facing it as it shone like a green sun. A massive suction force erupted, drawing the golden ring inside in an instant. With the ring gone, the terrifying fluctuations vanished, and the azure barrier held firm. Meanwhile, the heaven-controlling vial rapidly expanded as countless green runes emerged within, converging into a roiling green cloud. Powerful law fluctuations spread outward, causing nearby space to ripple. At that moment, a vertical golden eye opened at the center of the mantra treasured axis. A translucent golden thread shot forth and vanished into the heaven-controlling vial. The green cloud blazed brightly, erupting into a thick pillar of green light. Space parted before it, rays of translucent light pouring from a spatial rift to form a translucent wall filled with rapidly flashing images. A trace of disappointment surfaced on Hanli's face. He had expected the heaven-controlling vial to trigger something different. Just then, two tiny black eyes appeared on the vial's surface, turning toward Hanli. At the same time, a faint voice echoed within his mind. "It's about time." Hanli's expression shifted the instant he heard that voice, yet before he could react, an enormous vortex suddenly tore open upon the translucent wall of light. A terrifying suction force erupted from within, engulfing his entire body, far stronger than any of the previous times he had been drawn into the wall. In the next breath, that force abruptly vanished. A searing pain stabbed into his mind, and his consciousness was extinguished. After an unknown length of time, Hanli slowly regained awareness, his thoughts muddled. He discovered himself suspended within a murky gray void. Beneath him lay a barren, dark red plain stretching endlessly, devoid of all life. Above that desolation flowed a glittering silver river coursing through the sky, accompanied by dull, rolling rumbles. Upon closer inspection, Hanli realized the river was not water at all, but countless droplet-like orbs of light drifting endlessly onward. Though startled, Hanli did not move at once. This spiritual transmigration felt unlike the previous ones. A mysterious aura filled the surroundings, reminding him of the eyes that had appeared on the heaven-controlling vial and the faint voice that had echoed in his mind. Those eyes belonged to the vial spirit, and the voice had most likely come from it as well. Yet the vial spirit was nowhere to be seen, nor could he decipher its intent, so he set the matter aside. Only then did Hanli notice that, unlike before, He had not possessed anyone. His bare soul hovered freely in midair. It seemed the golden ring formed by the fused time law powers had resonated with the heaven-controlling vial, giving rise to this strange scene. After scanning the endless wasteland without finding anything noteworthy, he turned his attention to the celestial river. From up close, he could see it flowed from an unreachable distance, with no end in sight. Countless orbs of light of varying sizes drifted within, some as large as millstones, others no bigger than grains of rice, each containing flickering images too fleeting to grasp. Drawn by curiosity, Hanli carefully approached and focused on a larger droplet, within which a rapidly shifting yellow desert appeared. After a moment's hesitation, he extended his spiritual sense to examine it. Instantly, the droplet flared with brilliance and unleashed a violent suction force. Before he could resist, Hanli's soul was dragged inside, his vision plunging into darkness. When he finally awoke again, a ragged, fearful voice sounded nearby, lamenting the terrifying strength of an opponent who had slain 3 of 5 attackers. Another voice replied that the man had reached the pinnacle of the 5th level of the spirit refinement technique and that the fallen comrades had at least weakened him, allowing victory. Though losses were heavy, the speaker was confident that delivering the man's head would bring rich rewards from their superiors. Hanli's heart stirred. He immediately restrained his spiritual fluctuations and secretly examined his situation. As before, he had possessed a corpse. The body was that of a black-robed, middle-aged man with disheveled hair and sharp, fierce features even in death. He lay upon a yellow desert scarred by countless craters, smoke still rising with acrid fumes, clear signs of a fierce battle just concluded. Nearby stood 2 men clad in golden armor, bearing the insignia of the heavenly court. One was a tall, elderly man with thin brows, the other a bald, rotund youth already injured and bleeding. More armored corpses lay scattered in the distance. From a brief glance, Han Li judged both survivors to be high zenith cultivators, far stronger than Gong Shuju, and at least mid to late high zenith stage. Worse still, they were immortal envoys of the heavenly court. If they discovered another soul within this body, he would be slain without hesitation. Uncertain of the consequences of death in this state, Han Li cautiously withdrew his sense and burrowed deeper into the corpse's mind. At that moment, a blazing surge of heat flooded forth and fused with his soul. It was an immense and exceedingly pure spiritual sense, swelling his soul while carrying fragmented memories of the black-robed man. Having endured such transmigrations before, Han Li absorbed the memories smoothly. Only a portion of the vast spiritual sense could enter before his soul reached saturation, while the remainder condensed into a revolving, translucent white cloud tracing profound trajectories around him. Han Li was overjoyed. This spiritual sense far surpassed his own, and its circulation perfectly matched the method described in the 5th level of the spirit refinement technique. Centuries of painstaking cultivation had yielded him little progress, yet in this instant, many long-standing obstacles were suddenly resolved, filling him with enlightenment. Still, the danger at hand left no time for indulgence. His eyes snapped open. With a sweep of his sleeve, a black flying sword burst forth, vanishing instantly before countless black sword projections emerged, forming a towering sword mountain that surged toward the 2 armored men. They had already sensed the eruption of spiritual sense and retreated in alarm, unaware that a streak of translucent light had quietly shot from Han Li's glabella. The elderly man cried out in disbelief and countered with a massive blue worm projection, releasing glacial power that froze space itself, halting the sword mountain beneath layers of ice. The bald youth followed, unleashing 2 blazing crimson daggers that streaked toward Han Li. Han Li leapt lightly from the ground, narrowly evading them, a faint smile on his face as he formed a hand seal. Translucent chains materialized behind the elderly man and plunged into his head. Horror flashed across his face before his eyes glazed over, his body freezing mid-air as his soul was sealed within a spiritual sense cage. The ambush was swift and ruthless, leaving him no chance to resist. "Senior Marshal Brother Gao," the plump young man cried out in panic, terror flooding his eyes as he stared ahead. A frosty smile curled at the corners of Han Li's lips as he shot forward, translucent radiance flashing from his glabella like a blade of light. At once, the portly youth fled in blind terror, transforming into a streak of crimson brilliance. In his haste, he even abandoned his pair of curved dagger immortal treasures, not daring to look back. In the blink of an eye, the crimson streak vanished beyond the horizon. Hanli halted midair upon seeing this, choosing not to pursue. Suddenly, his complexion turned deathly pale. His breathing grew ragged as he drifted back down to the sand below. There had never been much immortal spiritual power within this body to begin with, and it had been nearly drained dry when Hanli unleashed the spirit sense cage against the elderly man earlier. Had the portly youth mustered the courage to fight back, Hanli would have had no strength left to resist. Fortunately, the young man was craven by nature and fled at the slightest hint of danger. Hanli flipped his palm, producing an immortal origin stone to restore his depleted energy. At the same time, he extended a finger, forcing out the last remnants of immortal spiritual power to release a thread of black light that pierced straight through the tall elderly man's head. With a dull explosion, the old man's skull burst apart, and his headless corpse collapsed lifelessly to the ground. After completing all this, Hunley himself sank down, utterly exhausted. Only now, with the immediate danger resolved, did he have the leisure to survey his surroundings. He realized that this vast yellow desert bore a striking resemblance to the scene he had glimpsed within the water droplet. After sitting quietly for a short while, Hanli lifted his gaze and saw a mantra treasured axis projection hovering above him. At this point, only a small portion of its 720 time Dao runes had faded. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the immense spiritual sense circulating within his mind, savoring the profundities of the 5th level of the spirit refinement technique while simultaneously examining the memories of the body he now inhabited. The black-robed man's name was Lu Renjia, a reincarnation disciple of the Reincarnation Palace. Unlike Hanli, Lu Renjia was a genuine reincarnation disciple, enjoying access to vast cultivation resources from the Reincarnation Palace. In exchange, however, he was required to periodically complete missions issued by the palace. It was during one such mission that Lu Renjia had arrived at this place, known as the Open Origin Immortal Region, only to be ambushed by 5 Heavenly Court immortal envoys, leading to his untimely demise. Eager to learn more about the enigmatic Reincarnation Palace, Hanli meticulously combed through Lu Renjia's fragmented memories. After a long while, he finally raised his head, brows knitted in faint disappointment. Most of the memories were filled with cultivation insights of little use to him, and there was very scant information regarding the Reincarnation Palace itself. Lu Renjia had served as a reincarnation disciple for over 2 million years, yet he was a cultivation fanatic who spent nearly all his time in secluded cultivation, rarely venturing out. Though he carried out numerous palace missions, he had never once encountered any of its higher-ups. The individual he interacted with most was a reincarnation envoy who acted merely as a liaison. Aside from this, there was nothing else of note concerning the Reincarnation Palace. Hanli shook his head slightly, then looked back up at the mantra-treasured axis projection. By now, over a quarter of the time Dao runes had already dimmed. After a brief moment of thought, he rose to his feet and walked over to the tall, elderly man's corpse. Retrieving his storage tool, he then collected the storage tools from the other 3 bodies as well. Soon after, he sat down and laid out the 4 storage tools alongside Lu Renjia's storage ring, examining them one by one. All 5 of the fallen cultivators had been at the high zenith stage, and their wealth was astonishing. Their storage tools brimmed with immortal origin stones, along with numerous high-grade immortal treasures, materials, and pills. Regrettably, Hanli knew he could not take most of these items with him, so he focused only on things that might be of immediate use. Before long, a small pile formed before him, consisting mainly of scriptures and jade slips, accompanied by a golden disc, a golden badge, and a white plate. He briefly examined the golden disc and white plate before setting them aside, then picked up the golden badge. He had seen similar items in Gong Shuju's storage tool before. The golden disc served as a communication device for immortal envoys, while the white plate was used to detect the aura of the spirit refinement technique. As for the golden badge, it appeared to be an identity token, one that each of the 4 armored figures had possessed. A finely carved dragon adorned its edge. One side bore the character prison, while the other was etched with a number. After a short inspection, Hanli set the badge aside and turned his attention to the scriptures and jade slips, most of which recorded cultivation arts and secret techniques. As befitted high zenith cultivators, these arts were all extraordinary and broadened Hanli's horizons. Although he still had time, he did not wish to linger, so he skimmed through them rapidly without attempting to memorize their contents. Suddenly, a gray jade slip caught his eye. Unlike the others, it contained a pill recipe rather than a cultivation technique. The pill was called the Vajra Iron Bone Pill, imbued with metal laws, capable of strengthening the physical body while aiding comprehension of metal law principles. Hanli glanced upward to see that fewer than half of the Time Dao runes on the mantra treasured axis remained illuminated. Withdrawing his gaze, he carefully memorized the pill recipe, then tossed the jade slip aside and continued checking the remaining items. Before long, he finished examining everything. With a sweep of his sleeve, he stored away the scriptures and jade slips, then gathered the 5 storage tools and flew off into the distance. Soon after, he descended upon an oasis within the desert, where a small lake shimmered at its center. He waved his sleeve again, releasing black light that carried the storage tools down to the lake bed and buried them beneath the sand. Thereafter, he sat cross-legged by the oasis and continued to experience the subtleties of the 5th level of the spirit refinement technique. He deliberately refrained from thoroughly examining the storage tools, wishing instead to devote as much time as possible to comprehending the technique. Time slipped by quietly. One by one, the Time Dao runes on the mantra treasured axis faded. When the final rune went dark, the axis projection turned pitch black and transformed into a vortex. An overwhelming suction force erupted forth, dragging Hanli's soul into it, without any chance of resistance. Once more, his consciousness sank into darkness. When he finally opened his eyes again, he found himself back within his cave abode. The heaven-controlling vial still hovered in midair, but its green radiance was rapidly dimming. Soon, it shrank back to its original size and dropped downward. Hanli reached out to catch it, inspected it briefly, and sent his spiritual sense inside, attempting to contact the vile spirit he had glimpsed before. No matter how hard he tried, there was no response, as though the spirit had fallen back into deep slumber. With a helpless sigh, Hanli stowed the heaven-controlling vial away. He then produced a jade slip and recorded the Vajra Iron Bone Pill recipe he had memorized, ensuring it would not be forgotten. After putting the jade slip away, Hanli drew a deep breath and closed his eyes once more. During this spiritual transmigration, he had been transported into that mysterious space and witnessed the strange river, leaving him with countless unanswered questions. The scenes flowing through the river seemed to depict the histories of various individuals, most of whom were already dead or on the brink of death. By possessing their bodies, Hanli could peer into fragments of their memories and gain insight. Whether he could choose his target during future transmigrations remained to be tested. The trouble was that each transmigration extinguished all the Time Dao runes on his mantra treasured axis. Even though their recovery was now much faster than before, restoring them fully would still take considerable time. The greatest gain from this journey lay in the cultivation insights Lu Renjia had accumulated regarding the 5th level of the spirit refinement technique. With these newfound understandings, Hanli was confident he could advance far more swiftly in cultivating this level. Just as he was about to begin cultivating, he suddenly opened his eyes and looked outward. A ball of white light flew in from outside the cave abode, circling briefly within his secret chamber before abruptly shattering. Hanli's brows furrowed slightly. He rose, deactivated the surrounding restrictions, and stepped out of his chamber. The cave gate opened to reveal a gray-robed elderly man with a pointed goatee and a somewhat sly, calculating expression. Hanli paused briefly upon seeing him, then smiled. "Long time no see, fellow Taoist Lu." The visitor was Lu Guanzi of Sunny Valley, a familiar acquaintance who often visited Taoist Master Jingyang and Immortal Lord Hot Flame. "Please forgive the intrusion, fellow Taoist Li," Lu Guanzi said with a smile. "Come in. What brings you here today?" Hanli asked, gesturing invitingly. There's no need. Let's speak here, Lu Guanzi replied with a faint smile. Hanli paused for a brief moment upon hearing this. Then a faint smile appeared on his face as he gestured calmly. Please, go ahead, fellow Taoist Lu. Lu Guanzi nodded and spoke with an easy smile. Recently, he and several fellow Taoists had stumbled upon a set of ancient ruins deep within the northern reaches of the Heavenly Peak mountain range. However, the ruins were layered with powerful restrictions and concealed dangers, making it impossible to explore safely with their current numbers. Thus, they had decided to return and recruit additional cultivators to jointly seek their fortunes. Since Han Li was among the most formidable experts in the surrounding valleys, Lu Guanzi had come specifically to extend the invitation. Han Li's brows drew together slightly as he listened, and he did not respond right away. Seeing this, the smile on Lu Guanzi's face dimmed a little, yet he remained patient and did not press for an answer. After a moment of silence, Han Li finally spoke. Thank you for thinking of me, fellow Taoist Lu, but I am currently occupied with other matters. I'm afraid I won't be able to accompany you to explore the ruins. Lu Guanzi could tell that Han Li's decision was firm. A trace of disappointment flashed across his face as he cupped his fists in farewell. In that case, I won't disturb you any further. Once Lu Guanzi departed, Han Li escorted him out, sealed the stone gate of his cave abode, and returned to his secret chamber. Sitting cross-legged, his expression turned contemplative. He had not declined the invitation merely because of his cultivation of the spirit refinement technique. Other concerns weighed heavily as well. Forming a hand seal, he summoned his mantra-treasured axis. Golden light flared behind him, revealing the massive axis, yet all 720 time Tao runes upon it were dull and lifeless. In this state, his combat strength was severely restrained, and venturing into perilous ruins would have been reckless in the extreme. With a thought, he withdrew the axis back into his body, closed his eyes, and a faint rippling, translucent glow surfaced over his glabella. The stone gate of his cave abode remained tightly shut. No one from Leisure Valley came to disturb him. More than 30 years slipped by in the blink of an eye. On this day, a streak of light descended from afar and halted before Han Li's cave abode. From it emerged a disheveled elderly man. It was Immortal Lord Hotflame. Before he could announce himself, the cave gate opened and Han Li stepped out with a warm smile. My apologies for not greeting you sooner, fellow Taoist Hotflame. There's no need for such formality, Immortal Lord Hotflame replied with a chuckle. I only just returned myself. Han Li invited him inside, but Hotflame waved him off, explaining that he had come only to deliver something. Han Li's eyes lit up at once, and he blurted out, Could it be that you found a profound Zoysia crystal? Hot Flame shook his head with a wry smile. Such a rare treasure was not so easily obtained. As Han Li looked on in confusion, Hot Flame flicked his wrist, and a burst of white light flashed as he tossed something over. Catching it, Han Li found a palm-sized white jade badge engraved with a red leaf. Beside it were the words Outer Sect Elder Badge, while the reverse bore the name Li Han. It was an Outer Sect Elder token of the Fireleaf Sect. With this badge, you'll be registered as an Outer Sect Elder of our Fireleaf Sect, Hot Flame explained. You'll be free to enter the inner city of Jade Gathering City. Of course, it's only symbolic. Our small sect can't afford the dayu of a golden immortal elder. Han Li thanked him sincerely, and after some insistence, promised to refine a batch of true immortal stage pills every 300 years, provided the sect supplied the materials. Though Hot Flame claimed he wanted nothing in return, the faint delight in his eyes revealed otherwise. Even such a modest commitment would, over countless years, greatly benefit the Fireleaf Sect, a fact that spoke volumes of how much the sect still mattered to him. With Hot Flame's assurance that registration with the Black Mountain Immortal Palace would pose no issue, the two chatted for a while longer before parting ways. Han Li then returned to his cave abode. 2 months later, Jade Gathering City bustled with life. Streets and alleys stretched endlessly, shops and merchant caravans crowded the roads, and enormous flying ships cruised along fixed routes before descending upon the city's docks. A colossal wall over 1,000 feet tall divided the outer and inner cities, guarded by cultivators and overseen at each gate by true immortals. At the northern gate of the inner city, Fewer than 200 people stood in line awaiting inspection. Near the back stood Han Li in azure robes, quietly observing the arrays carved into the walls, which glowed whenever someone passed through, verifying cultivation and sect registration. Suddenly, someone flew straight past the line toward the gate. The arrays erupted in dazzling golden light, revealing a high zenith jade immortal. Gasps rippled through the crowd before the figure vanished into the inner city. Soon after, Hanli reached the gate. The arrays glowed white, reflecting his golden immortal cultivation. He presented his Fireleaf Sect Elder Badge, which was examined and promptly returned. "You may enter, Senior," the guard said respectfully. Stepping inside, Hanli felt the surroundings brighten and the spiritual qi grow denser. Strange runes covered the ground and buildings, and he couldn't help but marvel that the inner city was constructed like a massive immortal sect. It was far quieter than the outer city. After visiting one shop only to be politely turned away, Hanli learned that only 3 establishments might possess a profound zoysia crystal. And even then, such a treasure was unlikely to be sold. Though unsurprised, he resolved to continue searching and test his luck regardless. Throughout the day, Hanli traversed shop after shop, yet every visit ended the same. Many merchants told him that although a profound zoysia crystal had once surfaced in Jade Gathering City, the chance of it appearing again was vanishingly small. Still, Hanli's expression never wavered, and he calmly continued his search from one storefront to the next. As dusk neared, he arrived at the Jade Kun Pagoda mentioned by Immortal Lord Hot Flame. Contrary to his expectations, the pagoda was neither grand nor imposing. It was merely an octagonal structure with red walls and green tiles, resembling an ordinary mortal building. Its southern gate was sealed shut, a talisman bearing the mark of the Black Mountain Immortal Palace affixed firmly to it. After making inquiries, Hanli learned that the Jade Kun Pagoda was no common establishment, but an auction venue that opened only during the city's founding celebration, an event held once every 3,000 years. With 200 to 300 years remaining until the next occasion, there was nothing more to be done. Thus, Hanli settled into a secluded immortal inn within the city, renting a cave abode. By day he continued his search, and by night he cultivated in quiet solitude. 5 or 6 years passed in the blink of an eye. Though he found no trace of the profound zoysia crystal, Hanli gained a thorough understanding of Jade Gathering City. It was a true nexus for immortals, where spirit materials, medicines, treasures, and cultivation arts were traded in quantities and varieties far surpassing those of the northern glacial immortal region. Not only was the selection vast, but the quality and pricing were markedly superior. Unlike the loose free market system of the Transient Guild, prices here were orderly and standardized. During his stay, Hanli sold many excess immortal treasures and spirit materials, while also purchasing supplementary ingredients for refining baleful quelling pills. Even so, he exercised restraint, acquiring only 1 or 2 of each ingredient, knowing that immortal origin stones would be crucial should a profound zoysia crystal ever appear. Though he had once amassed great wealth at the Infernal Frost Immortal Manor, the trials of the primordial land and his expenditures in Jade Gathering City had reduced his reserves to fewer than 500,000 immortal origin stones. While still considerable, it was only a shadow of his former fortune. Alarmed by this rapid depletion, Hanli resolved to be more frugal. Having already visited nearly all the major shops without success, and realizing his cultivation had been neglected, Hanli departed Jade Gathering City and returned to Leisure Valley. Life there resumed its usual calm rhythm. Less than half a year later, he received a message from Taoist Master Jingyang, inviting him to a gathering at the Wave Ripple Pavilion. Jingyang announced that his purple seductress wine was finally ready for tasting. Hanli declined at first, but Jingyang persisted with 2 more invitations, leaving him no choice but to attend. The Wave Ripple Pavilion lay deep within the valley, near Mawuswe's cave abode. Built at the center of a pond, it was small yet exquisitely crafted. When Hanli arrived, everyone was already present. Duan Yuzai and the others sat around a stone table laden with immortal fruits, a jade wine flagon of deep purple brew at its center. Nearby, Yuzuki sat cross-legged behind a guqin, slender fingers plucking at strings as he smiled faintly, occasionally glancing toward the lone woman present. Fellow Taoist Li, you're the only one here whose taste rivals mine. Had you not come, I would have been utterly despondent. Taoist Master Jing exclaimed. Han Li cupped his fist apologetically, explaining his recent return from Jade Gathering City. Mo Wushui, dressed in white, asked whether he had found the sought-after stone. Han Li could only shake his head with a wry smile. Duan Yuzai added that none of his contacts had yielded news either. Seeing the mood shift, Han Li gently steered the conversation away, proposing they enjoy the wine and music instead. Jing Yang laughed and raised a toast. Han Li accepted the cup, inhaled its fragrance, and promptly named nearly all its ingredients, stunning Jing Yang with his insight. Han Li laughed modestly, recalling his many discussions of fine wine with Taoist Hu Yan in the Blaze Dragon Tao. As the wine flowed, Jing Yang suddenly turned toward Immortal Lord Hot Flame, asking if he had ever attended a Jade Kun Pagoda auction. Hot Flame scoffed, explaining that entry required a golden jade silk square, so rare that one had once sold for 600 immortal origin stones, and that even he could not justify such a cost. With a smug smile, Jing Yang produced a palm-sized golden silk square, woven of countless fine threads and embroidered with an octagonal pagoda surrounded by beasts and birds. The pagoda was unmistakably the Jade Kun Pagoda. Hot Flame leapt to his feet in shock, protesting that it was far too early for such tokens to be released. He quickly admitted, however, that the item could not be fake, as it bore the unmistakable craftsmanship of 100 Creations Mountain under the watchful eye of the Black Mountain Immortal Palace. Han Li's heart stirred at the mention of 100 Creations Mountain, recalling its legacy and the origins of the 100 Meridian refinement mantra he once cultivated. Even across the true Immortal Realm, that sect's reputation was formidable. With everyone watching, Jing Yang feigned modesty, while Hot Flame openly accused him of showing off. Laughing, Jing Yang explained that he intended to watch for a profound zoysia crystal at the auction and secure it for Han Li if possible. Hot Flame jokingly suggested he simply give the silk square away, but Jing Yang demurred, citing his own interest in the auction's treasures. Han Li, unable to suppress his eagerness, transmitted his voice privately to Taoist Master Jing Yang, asking whether the golden jade silk square could be entrusted to him instead, offering repayment in stones, pills, treasures, or even the coveted wine recipes Jing Yang so desired.